This is part 3 of my recollections of famous events in history, and today I'm going to talk about the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., which took place on April 4th, 1968. I was a junior in high school, and I was doing my homework in the evening at the card table which I used as a desk in my bedroom. And as always, when I was doing homework, I had the radio on listening to WLS in Chicago, listening to rock and roll music. And suddenly a bulletin came on that Martin Luther King had been shot. And then later another bulletin came on and said that he had died, and that they thought they had a suspect who was a white man, a Caucasian. So my first thoughts were, this is going to be really bad, because race relations both in the Chicago area and around the United States were not particularly good back in those days. And where I lived, there was a certain demarcation line of streets that if you were white, you did not go into the black section except at your peril. And if you were black, you did not cross over that street into the white section unless you wanted to take your life in your own hands. So there was quite a bit of racism and quite a bit of suspicion about the races. So I had a feeling this was going to be a really bad thing. And sure enough, riots started to break out all across the United States. Over 100 cities had terrible arson and looting, vandalism. Many places had to call out the National Guard. For about a month, the cities were in very bad shape, and it was on the news every day. And this was odd because this was exactly against what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had stood for, which was change through nonviolent protesting. So I remember black leaders got together with political leaders and basically begged the different communities to calm down and settle down. Particularly for myself, at that time I was working as a stock clerk after schools and on the weekends at High-Low Foods, which was a grocery store. And I worked with a mixed crew of both white and black teenage boys, and all of us got along just fine. We were interested in all of the same things of teenage boys at that time, which of course was girls, work, school, what's happening at school, what's happening in the world, and rock and roll music was our main unifier. And so when I went to work shortly after the assassination, we talked a little bit about that between our job duties, but then I had to walk home through a troubled neighborhood, which was mostly black, and my black co-workers, my black friends, said, look, we're going to walk you through the most dangerous areas and tell anyone there that would attempt to attack you that you were a good person and that you were with us, and that way you could make it home safely. So that's what they did, and I tell you, without their help, I probably would have gotten attacked and beaten during those dark days. Later on, I went to Memphis, Tennessee, to the Lorraine Motel, which had been turned into a civil rights museum, and that's where Martin Luther King was killed. And you could go into his hotel room, and it was preserved with plastic sheeting and things like that, exactly as he had left it the day he had been shot. And you could see the spot on the balcony where he fell, and there was a big flower wreath there. Across from the balcony on the second floor of the hotel, you could see the back of the rooming house where the assassin James Earl Ray took the fatal shot. If you want to read a good book about this, it's called Hellhound on My Trail by Hampton Sides, and this just came out a few months ago. Very good day-by-day description of the events surrounding the assassination of Dr. King. Later on, I also went to Atlanta, Georgia, and I got to see King's boyhood home in an area that's now a national park called Sweet Auburn. And I saw also the Ebenezer Baptist Church, where both he and his father had preached, because of course they were both preachers. And nearby, a few blocks down, is the Martin Luther King Center for Nonviolence, and there you can see his grave. It's in a little reflecting pool of water, and it has his famous quote, free at last, thank God Almighty, I'm free at last." So it's really worth your time to go visit that area. It's a very moving tribute for a very important and great man in U.S. history.